light on the camera.
Yeah.
It's recording.
Jesus. Man.
She's watching herself on the TV.
She wants her to come look. Get it?
More.
Oh, you can't look at the TV.
I'm trying.
You're a star.
I'm trying to follow her.
You can't see anything.
Why don't you get down there and look?
After you can't. The video's out on the camera, so we have to put up the TV to see what we're looking at.
Oh, he was the horse, he was the man, he was the wise man, he was the more, man. She was supposed to be man, some more, man.
Dave, look at you. Look at you, David.
Mama can't say.
Catch me asleep.
Don't now.
Is it recording?
You have to be quiet. Merry Christmas. Today is December 25th, 1999, and we have met here with Blaine and Jolene to ask them some questions. I don't think Jolene will tell us much, but hopefully Blaine will. So, this is kind of a life history of him. We wrote down a whole bunch of questions we're going to ask him. Okay, Blaine, state your full name and how did they come up with that name? Go ahead.
Blaine Tuller Fisher. And the Tuller comes on Mom's side. She was a Tuller before Dad married her.
Do you know where they got Blaine from? Is that anything in particular?
No, don't think so.
Okay, when's your birthday and where were you born?
November 4, 1929. And I was born in Smithfield.
Okay, Smithfield, Utah.
Smithfield, Utah.
And what's the full names of your parents?
Glenn Roberts Fisher and Sarah Anna Tuller Fisher.
And where did their ancestors come from?
Mom's came from Switzerland and Grandpa's came from England.
Okay. And how many brothers and sisters did you have?
Do you want
This is your life history.
6 and 3 or 7 and 4?
Well, go ahead and explain it.
I had 7 sisters, but the first one died at 8 or 9 years old. And another brother, besides the 2 that were alive, and he died at birth or shortly thereafter.
And what was your sister's name that died and how did she die?
What was her name?
Rachel?
No. Doris. Doris Fisher. And she had pneumonia, and in them days they didn't know what to do with all the problems of health and stuff. And she got pneumonia, and from pneumonia she died. Glenn Jr., he died right after birth, and I don't really know what the problem is.
Okay, the first question we're going to ask you about is your growing up. Do you remember any conditions surrounding your birth?
Yeah, I wasn't very big.
Remember how much you weighed?
Small baby, they told me, but I don't know what the pounds were. But,
Any complications, or did you come early, or?
no, I don't think so. I think it was just, I don't think in them days they had dates too good.
Okay.
And nobody knew for sure, but I was a small baby.
So were you born at home or in the
I
hospital?
was born at home. Yeah, midwife.
And what number were you in the family?
Well, the ones that lived, I was the 5th one.
Fifth child,
Fifth
first
child.
son
First son
that lived.
that lived.
Okay. What's your first recollection of life that you remember?
We lived on a farm, and the cows and the pigs and the livestock probably the first recollection of what was going on around us and what have you. But like I said, I was the fifth born, so there was plenty of happening all the time, so I got an education in a hurry.
Okay. Tell us about your father. Where was he born and what was he like?
Oh, Dad was born in, I guess, yeah, Dad was born in Smithfield. And he had one other brother and 4 sisters. And they were all born on the farm there in Smithfield. I'm sure they was born at home, but I don't know that for sure.
Uh-huh. What was his hobbies? What did he like to do?
Well, he liked to fly fish and he liked to hunt, but surprising enough, the boys, never did go hunting with him. He always went hunting with a group of men, and he fly fished. He loved to fly fish up Smithfield Creek above the house there. That was probably his 2 most. He was a farmer, so in the summertime he always had plenty to do. And in the wintertime, why, a lot of chores to do and cows to milk and stuff. So he didn't like to play pool.
Okay.
He was an excellent pool player.
Huh. Did he have any other jobs that he did besides the farm?
Yeah, about the only other one was just every year at sugar beet time, sugar factory. He worked with a bunch of guys up at the sugar factory in Lewiston. And that's about all.
Okay, what about Grandma Sarah, your mother?
Mom was born in Montpelier, Idaho. Well, Geneva, just on the other side of Montpelier. She was born there, and there was 3 girls and she had 3 sisters and 3 brothers. And they all lived on a farm over in Geneva, milked cows. And they'd been there till Mom went to Paris to go to school after she'd done Montpelier. And while in Paris, one of her sisters had married a guy from Smithfield, and they got them both together, and that's how Dad and Mom met. And later on, or shortly thereafter, they were married in the Logan Temple.
What were her hobbies? What did she like to do? What was she good at?
Oh, she could crochet. Probably got a bunch of Afghans around here that she did. We have, I know. And Mom worked after the kids was somewhat raised. Why, she went to work down to the Army Depot down by Ogden, and she'd catch a bus every morning and go over the Sardine Canyon and went to work down at the depot. She worked there for 20-some years, and she didn't quite have enough time in when we all moved to Pocatello. And so she worked out to the gun plant here in Pocatello to finish up her civil service so she could draw her pension. She didn't have time to do very many hobbies. With 9 of us home, she was a pretty busy lady just taking care of the kid. But she was an excellent cook. She baked 10, 12 loaves of bread every Saturday on her day off, and was an excellent cook. Loved to sing. What else you want to know?
What were their personalities, your mom and your dad? Were they easygoing? Were they strict? Were they?
Dad was a worrywart. He just worried about everything, and Mom, she was pretty carefree, and she kept it all together. And they in those days, you didn't have television, you didn't have all this nonsense that goes on around here now. So they belonged to the group there in the ward, played cards and went around to each other's houses and had social dinners and what have you. But there wasn't a whole bunch to do unless you wanted to go to a movie.
So Grandpa Fisher was social?
Oh yeah. They had that group. There was probably 12, 15 couples, and they'd go around, play cards, and socialize that way, but that was about the size of it.
So how was your relationship with your parents?
All us kids had good relationships with the parents, but the older sisters, when they got graduated and we had the house full, so they decided they had to move out. But whenever anybody left, well, it was certainly with good relations, and there was never, the kids quarreled among themselves, but mom and dad, they didn't do much of the quarrel.
Do you remember much about your grandparents?
I never even knew my grandparent Fishers. Grandpa Fisher died when I think I was 5, and Grandma Fisher died before him. I never did know Grandma Fisher. Mom's parents, the Toolers, her mother died before I was old enough to know anything about them, but Grandpa went on a mission to Germany when he was, I don't know, older. And when he came back, he met a gal over there. And when he came back and Grandma died, which I don't remember Grandma Tooler, he married this gal from Germany, brought her over and married her. And I remember her. Couldn't speak a word of English, and she was just a super lady, but she scared me to death. I didn't know her, couldn't understand her, and she'd holler when she talked. She, like I say, she was a super lady. But Grandpa Tooler, he lived, I was probably 15 or 16 probably when he died, and I remember him, just a little short guy. He was a super grandpa.
Did you get along with your brothers and sisters?
Got along with the sisters real well, and the brothers, we always had to milk the cows and do the chores, and nobody wanted to help me, and so I was a little uptight with them sometimes. We'd get out in the barn in the hayloft and have a few fights and decide who was cock of the walk or who was running the show. But for 9 of us, I'd say we got along pretty good.
So how much older were you than Leon and Farron?
Farron was just 2 years younger than me, and Leon was 8 years younger.
Was there one brother or sister that you could confide in more than another? That you had a good relationship with more than the others?
Oh, me and Afton always got along real good. But she left when her and Dorothy both left the house by the time I was a senior in high school. And but even after that, like Afton was probably my favorite. And then me and Leon got along better than me and Fudd, but there certainly wasn't any bad feelings between any of us, the boys.
What about any special talents that your brothers and sisters had or have?
Well, Velma and Leon was both excellent singers, and they did take some lessons, and they did a lot of high school singing and church singing together. And Beverly was certainly a good singer. She took some singing lessons too. But everybody could sing, and Afton and Cheryl both picked up playing the piano. They never did take any lessons, but they just taught themselves, and Afton could beat that piano pretty good. And Cheryl, I don't know if she still plays or not, but those two were pretty musical.
Okay. What schools did you attend?
Well, they had a Summit Elementary School in Smithfield. That was 1 through 6, and then we had I don't know what they call that, junior high. What was it? I don't know. Can't remember. But there was junior high for 3 years, then we went to North Cache for 3 years, and just in Richmond, Utah.
And in high school, how did you get to school?
we had to ride the bus. It was 7 miles in high school from Smithfield to Richmond, was 7 miles, and they had the bus every morning, but I usually didn't make the bus because I wasn't done with my chores and the milking in time, so I had to hitchhike about half the time and put my thumb out and get a ride to school.
Did you
Oh,
ever,
there, there. I was about to miss so much more,
Yeah, you remember, don't you? You remember.
did you ever have a car in school?
Last year of high school, bought me an old Model A car. I think I gave $160 for it or something, and it had never had very good tires on it. And about half the time I drive to school and have a flat tire or blow out a tire. So I didn't have too good of luck getting to school with my own car that last year of school.
All right. Do you feel like you were popular in school?
I was the smallest kid in my class.
Were you?
I was, about 98 pound weakling when I was a senior.
Do you feel like the kids liked you?
Oh, we all liked each other. There was only, in my senior class, there was 27 boys and 33 or 34 girls or something like that. So it wasn't a big class, and it wasn't a matter of everybody liked everybody, it seemed like.
Thinking back, was there a teacher or a class that had a lot of influence on you?
I had a 5th grade math teacher. I've been, the last 5 years I've tried to think of her name, and I've got the school book out, and she isn't in there, and I don't know her name, but she had more to do with my math than any other teacher. And then we had a farm mechanics teacher that we used, and he was a super influence in my life.
So, did you have any heroes growing up?
You didn't have time for heroes on a farm. There was always things to do and too much work. But Eddie Arnold was just getting started about that time, and as far as singing, and I don't know about an idol, but I thought he had it all.
Okay. Did you ever skip school?
Well, I didn't skip, I just didn't make it in time. Like I said, I was always too late getting to school, but every Friday afternoon in May, when the weather was good, a bunch of us seniors our last year would jump in the car and go to Donetta. So yeah, I guess I skipped a little school.
Did you play any sports or participate in any extracurricular activities?
I sang in all the operas and didn't play in any sports. I had to get home and do the chores, so Leon played the sports and Fudd sang in the operas, and I went home and done the chores.
What did you like watching any sports or?
Oh yeah, we went all the ball games. I met my bride here when we was a junior in high school, and we probably didn't miss anything. We went to all of them. Dances, sports, football games, and all the church doings, and the green and gold balls. She had a whole closet full of corsages that I bought her, going to all the green and gold balls.
What sports do you like to watch now?
I guess basketball's my favorite.
What team's that?
Utah Jazz.
All right. Did you have any pets growing up?
I always had dogs, and when you're on the farm, you have some cats, but they weren't inside pets. They never did go inside, and the cats stayed out in the barn, caught the mice. So and a horse, I always had a horse, and the dogs and the cats. They were for all of us, they weren't just for me.
Do you remember having a hard time when any of them died?
Yeah, I had, we had old Coley, black ugly mongrel that was right in the middle of us all the time and went with us. And we were out cutting peas one night, harvesting, and Dad was mowing with a mower and a team of horses. And you'd have to see the old mowers to even know what I'm talking about, but they had the big sickle bar hanging down, and the horses pulled it, and them sickles would cut all the peas. And this dog was right on that sickle bar watching, and the mice would jump up on there, come up on there when he'd go down through there cutting the peas. He jumped up there one time and cut both of his paws off. And they were just hanging by skin. And Dad said, after we got done that night, he said, well, we're gonna have to euthanize him. And he about bled to death, and he was in bad shape. And I said, no, we're gonna give him one chance. We're gonna take him to the vet, and we're gonna sew them paws back on, and if he see if he can make it. And the vet said he wasn't about to sew the paws back on, and I said, you gotta do it. You gotta do it just this one time. So he went ahead and sewed them paws back on, and the poor thing didn't have no control of them. They did heal, but he didn't have no control of them. And it was an awful sight to see him hopping around there with them paws down. Anyway, he made it, and right shortly after that he got pneumonia. And he finally died. It wasn't 6 months after he had that done, but he was probably the most influential of any of the pets I ever had.
So us kids grew up with the Coley, the Cocker Spaniels. So you had one that was Coley.
Yep. Yeah. I guess that's the reason we called that one Coley that you got, you know.
Black as
Of course,
coal.
it was black as coal, and so was the one that I had.
All right. Did you ever have a best friend, or just friends with all your friends?
Well, there was me and my cousin DeVar and Wes Tarbett that lived right there together, and I guess as far as best friends go, they were probably, and Cookie Carpet, you met him when we was building that house for Preston.
Don't remember.
You do too. He come out there where we were building that one day, and I talked to him for an hour. Anyway, they were right there in the neighborhood, and we kind of run around together, but it wasn't a matter of probably best friends, but they were the closest ones that I had.
Do you remember any embarrassing moments growing up?
Probably all of them were all embarrassing. I don't know. It wasn't embarrassing, but it was dumb. Was late getting home from school one night, or done something we shouldn't have done. Maybe went to Donetta or something, I don't remember. But Dad, when he came home and the cows wasn't milked and the chores wasn't done, he said, you're the oldest, you're supposed to see that that's done, you're supposed to be here and take care of it. And he said, I ought to kick your butt, but he said, I don't believe in doing that, but next time you'll get your butt kicked. And there wasn't the next time. I made sure that the chores and the milking was done.
Did you have any favorite toys?
Never had any toys.
Did you have a bike?
Yeah, we bought a bike. We had a paper route. And Dorothy, I think, started the paper route, and we had a bike. And one Christmas, or maybe, I guess it was a Christmas, I don't remember now for sure, but there was a brand new bike. Dorothy and Afton had left, and I was passing the papers, and there was a brand new bike under the tree. A Roll Fast, it was called. A Roll Fast. We got that, but I wasn't the only one that used it, but I was the one that kept it shining and took care of it.
Okay, you said you go to Downetta. Were there any other things you did, other dances, or go to movies, church functions, things like that?
We didn't miss a Saturday night dance in Logan or Preston. And like I said, we hit every green and gold ball, that's what they called them in those days. Every ward and every stake had a green and gold ball, and that was usually on Wednesday or Thursday night, so we went to all of them. Went to the dances on Saturday night down to the Dawn Song, and that's after I started dating her. And danced all night like a couple of dummies.
What was your curfew?
Well, I never had one, but I'll tell you one thing. My dad was an early riser. He was up at 4:30 every morning, regardless of what happened or where we'd been. And lots of times I just barely got home to change my clothes to go back out to milk the cows.
Do you remember any trips that you went on with your family? Or your father or mother?
Well, the only trip we done every year was go to Bear Lake to the family reunion. And got a lot of good memories of that. I say that's the only one. That isn't the only one, but that's the only one that we all went together and everybody went. And it got so big, we went over to Ideal Beach and before they built all the condos over there, and slept on the beach, and played in the water, Bear Lake.
That was the Tuller family.
Tuller family reunion.
That was 7 brothers that came over from Switzerland?
6 brothers.
6 brothers. Do you know when they came over?
I don't know the time. Mom was born in 1901 or 2, and she was born here, so they had to come over.
She was born in 1896, wasn't she?
96 was it? I know it was right around 1900. So they had to come over before, and Mom was the oldest girl. She wasn't the oldest boy, but she's the oldest girl. So I don't know.
Okay.
But the 6 brothers came over from Switzerland, and they all was cheese men. They built a cheese factory over there in Geneva, and then they moved to Paris or to Montpelier. They had a cheese factory in Montpelier, and then one down in Paris for years, and they were the founders of that, and they hung on to it for a long time, but they're all closed now, of course.
Okay. Do you remember any special feelings you had as a child? Any fears or fantasies or?
Nothing scared me but heights. I thought I could do it all.
Did you ever get lost as a child?
No. Got lost in the corn patch when you couldn't see out, but never did get, no.
How did you earn your money, and what was your first real job besides the chores at home?
Well, every spring to get a few bucks after we got our own dad's beets thinned, we always had a patch of beets. And when I got the cows milked at night, then me and Farron and Leon would go thin beets for all the neighbors till dark just for spending money. And then in the fall, we would help them harvest their sugar beets. And that was, other than, doing a few odd jobs and stuff, well, that was about the only spending money we had.
Did Grandpa give you any money for helping around the house?
No, the only thing we done is we got a little older, he'd give us, each one of us a cow. And when that cow would have a calf, we could either keep it, we milked this cow, and sent the milk in each one of us as individual names to the factory. And when that cow had a calf, we could either keep it and put it in the herd and keep milking that calf too, or we could sell it and do what we wanted with it, or Dad would take it and put it in his herd and milk. But we always had a little milk check to keep us going till we left or got married or whatever.
What was your Christmases like at home?
Well, with 9 of you, you can imagine what it was like. No, we never did have a TV at the house. First TV I ever owned, I bought when I moved to Pocatello.
What about a radio?
Had radios, listened to the fights and Grand Ole Opry on Saturday night, listened on the radio.
Did you ever go camping?
Just when we went to Bear Lake, probably was about the size of it with the family. I never did much camping, overnight stuff. We'd take off and go up to Smithfield Canyon and have a lunch and do a little fishing, but never did overnight.
Do you remember any special birthday parties?
Well, we always had a cake. Everybody had their cake when we had a birthday, but I'd just eat the cake, cake and ice cream if we had it, and then I was gone. So I don't remember much of a birthday party.
What about games?
Played board games constantly. Whenever it rained or whenever in the evening we had card games or board games. Yeah, played a lot of them.
Were you ever seriously ill or in an accident?
Yeah, in them days everybody had pneumonia and everybody had a cough or something all the time, it seemed like in the winter time. Mom would feed us cod liver oil and worm powders to try and keep us all going, and I guess some of it worked.
Did I remember you telling me once you got a pitchfork stuck through your head?
Yeah, we was unloading loose hay. We never did have a baler, and we was unloading loose hay. And I don't know if it was Farron or Leon was up on the top of the load unloading, and I was down underneath. And they said, all clear? And I told them, yeah, nothing came. So I walked out from under the wagon to see what was the matter up on top, and went over to throw the pitchfork down. Hit me right above the ear, went in through my head, and come right out just above the ear, on the side there, on the right side. They just put Dad put my head between his legs and pulled it out. It didn't hardly bleed. And he said, I don't think it done much damage. And we went right along.
Didn't go to the hospital.
Never went to the hospital. Don't even remember going to the doctor.
What about Leon getting shot?
We was hoeing corn or beets, weeding them. And we was over at the Amalga farm, and we rode over that morning, and me and Leon and Bud and maybe a couple of the girls was there. And we had long-handled hoes, but you have to bend over, and we was all bent over, hot, going down through there weeding. And Leon looked up, and he said, he fell to his knees. I said, what's the matter with you? And he said, I think I've been shot. I said, no, we never heard no gun go off or nothing. Didn't hear anything. I said, no, and right just above his right shoulder, or down his right shoulder there was a drip of blood. And never bled anymore or anything. And he said, I've been shot. I said, I don't think so, but I said, you sure didn't a bee sting or something? No, I've been shot. And I said, well, you better go find Dad, and you better go to town and see what's the matter. And he took off running for the top of the field. I don't know how long this tape is. We had an old Model A, still the old Model A that I had bought a couple of years before, and had to crank it to get it started. Dad was out there trying to crank that thing. He was all nervous and worried. He couldn't get that thing started. And Leon said, I'll crank it for you. So Leon goes out, cranks the car, and gets it running. And they run to Smithfield to the doctor over there, and he x-rayed him. And sure enough, there was a slug right in his back. It had lodged in his back. And he said, well, we have this happen in the service all the time, so unless it moves or starts giving you trouble, we just leave it there. And he packed that the rest of his life. He still had it in his back when died.
Any other accidents or anything you want to tell us about?
Oh, we was hauling manure one day, me and Dad, and had the team hitched up to a wagon, and we loaded it up. He got stuck, the team couldn't pull it out of the muck, and so I jumped off the back, and he messed around and tried to get the team to pull that thing loose, and he couldn't. I got behind and was pushing, I was just a kid. I was pushing, trying to help, and he backed that team up and run right over me. And smashed me good in the cow shit and the mud and everything else. But it didn't break anything, and it didn't, yeah, I guess it didn't hurt anything. I don't know. But I do remember that. They took him 30 minutes to clean the muck out of my mouth and ears and eyes.
I know.
She's gone to sleep, so.
I know.
Okay. What about church? Did the family go to church?
Dad didn't go to church much. He'd go whenever anybody was doing anything special, but he didn't go on an awful lot. But Mom would get us all up most Sundays. But as I got older, I thought we had a milk route too. We had to go gather up the milk cans from the farmers and haul them to Richmond. And as I got older, I kept telling Dad, I'll haul the milk. You don't need to worry about that on Sunday. I'll take care of that on Sunday. And I guess it was just to get out of church, but he knew what was going on. So most of the time he'd say, no, I'll haul the milk. You go ahead. But that was a good excuse to try and get out of church when we was kids.
Did Grandma Sarah have any church positions ever?
Oh yeah, she was Relief Society for years. And I don't know if Mom ever done young women or not. It seemed like it was all Relief Society that I remember anyway, but she was right in the middle of it all.
Did Grandpa Fisher ever get involved in any church things?
Not really. No, he didn't. Just when there were special programs or kids was doing something, then he would go.
Okay. Anything else about growing up that you'd like to add that you think of that would be interesting?
Well, the only thing I can think of is, you got to count your blessings if you happen to be raised on a farm. I don't know that made us any better or any worse, but there was never any boring moments. I'm bored, you hear all the time from these kids, There was never any bored moments on the farm. And we had a big garden, and we done a lot of work in the garden, and a lot of chores, and a lot of milking. And we never went hungry. We never had any money, but we always had plenty to eat. We'd kill a beef or a hog, or had all the vegetables out of the garden, and we canned. My gosh, we canned everything that come along, and we had a 10-year supply that was 10 years old. But we never went hungry. Like I said, we never had any money, but we never went hungry.
Okay. You thirsty?
Yeah.
All right, now I want to talk to you about marriage and family. How did you meet Mom?
Well, I had seen her. We were going to the same high school, and I'd seen her, but I didn't ask her for a date. But one day, Dean Plowman he was sneaking up there to see her. He's my cousin. And we was over in his barn one Sunday or Saturday or something playing basketball. He said, "You want to meet that girl from Cove that I know up there?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to meet her." So I don't remember if it was a school or if it was a special occasion. We drove up to her house, and I got to meet and talk to her. And so about that weekend or something, called her up and I said, how about a date for Friday night? Oh, I've got a date for Friday night. But she says now, or told me later, that she just hated to tell me that she had a date. I said, okay, I'll call you again. So I said, well, how about Saturday night? I got a date. And I think we went through a whole week. There were 2 weekends or something, and she had dates every time I called. And I knew she was going with this one guy, and I didn't particularly care for him anyway, but I said, oh, just tell him you're sick, we'll go. No, can't do that. I'm not that kind of gal. And I said, well, you tell me when I can have a date with you. So she gets a calendar out about 2 weeks or 3 weeks down the line. Here come a Friday night, and it was open. That's the best I can do. I said, if that's the best you can do, that's what we'll do. So we went to Lewiston to the movie that night, and I slept through the movie. And going home, I said, well, boy, I'm a real live wire, aren't I? She said, maybe we can do better at a dance or something. And so we made a date for the next Saturday night. And from then on, it was my show and my girl, and every Saturday night and every night there were ball games or whatever. We was together after that.
So how long after that until you got married?
That was in our junior year of high school, and we got married the year after we graduated.
So how old were you?
Them kids don't want to hear that. We were both 18.
And how did you propose to her?
Everybody knows that, don't they? Mm-mm. I bought her a ring. We'd just finished the sugar beet harvest, and we'd helped this guy with his sugar beet harvest, me and Farron and Leon, and he paid us. And Beverly was still living at home then, and I went home and I said, Bev, I'm going to give Jolene a diamond. Do you want to go help me pick it out? Yeah, I'd love to. But she said, when are you going to give it to her? And I said, I'm going to give it to her on her birthday, and her birthday's October 21st. And she said, oh, wait till Christmas. And I said, then you won't have to buy 2 presents. And I said, no, I'm going to give it to her on her birthday. So me and Beverly went and picked out the diamond. That night we was going to Logan. I don't know if we was going to a dance or what we were doing. We was in the car going to Logan, just me and her. Driving along, and I reached in my pocket, my shirt pocket or something, and had this diamond in a box, and I threw it in her lap, and I said, try that on for size.
Where?
Where?
Where I am?
She opened that thing up, and we about had a wreck.
You want her?
Uh-huh. She said, what does this mean? And I says, it means I want you, woman, you're it. And she said, well, that's a different proposal than kind of what I had in mind, but if that's what it is, well, I guess it'll work. So we got engaged that night, and that was probably the next spring in May is when we got married.
So what attracted you to Mom the most?
She'd do anything I asked her, and she didn't argue back.
Can understand now.
Yeah.
I didn't have time to mess around, and I was a busy boy, and if she wanted to put up with that, why, that's what I wanted. I knew it was mine just as soon as I got with her.
Did you have any fears about getting married?
Never. None. All I wanted to do was, I was burned out so bad from Dayton, and she lived 20 miles away, so I'd have to do my chores, get done with the milking by 7:30 or so o'clock, and then I'd go up, drive up, pick her up, then we'd go to them dances, and they wasn't out till after midnight, or 1 o'clock, and then by the time we got a bite to eat, and I took her home and got back to the house, It was 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I burned out, and I decided I had to make some changes, so I married her and got her there where I could watch over her and take care of her.
Good job.
Do you remember first meeting your in-laws?
Yeah, Jolene, her dad was still alive then. He was killed the next fall. But when I first started going up there, why, Jolene would tell her dad he liked bread and milk. And he'd pull out the bread drawer and start getting these milk and bread out about the same time that I was supposed to be coming for a date. And Jolene would say, "You quit getting that bread and milk out. Blaine will be here in just a little bit, and I don't want him to see you setting up that breadboard, eating bread and milk. You think you're starving to death around here." And she didn't like that program. So about the first or second time I went up there, her dad told me, he said, "You like bread and milk?" And I said, "I love bread and milk." Pulls out the drawer, slices the new homemade bread. Me and him sat down and had bread and milk. And that's probably the first and the closest I ever got to her dad, especially. And that was the next summer. He was hit by lightning and killed.
So how did that happen?
He had just bought a new tractor, and he owned that hill behind Cove there, and he was going up. He had a new plow on it, and he was going up to do a little plowing on the hillside there. And he took a cantaloupe, or a cut cantaloupe with him, a piece of the cantaloupe, up there, and I had a date that night with him. So when I got up there, it was after dark, and Grandma Della was saying that he hadn't came home yet, but the dog had came home, and she couldn't figure that one out, and she knew where he was plowing up there. So she drove up to see what was going on, and there'd been a cloud, shower, rain shower that afternoon or that evening, and the tractor was still running, parked out in the pasture there, and he was sitting underneath some bushes, got some shelter underneath these bushes, and he still had that half that cantaloupe on his lap. And lightning hit that bush and got him right on top of the head, and Grandma Della came running back, crying back, screaming. She backed the car around to get out of there, to get back on the road to come back home, and she high-centered on a rock, high-centered the car on a rock, and she couldn't get it off. So she run down to the nearest neighbor, got them, and they brought her home, and they went back up. His brother went back up to get Raymond, and there he was still. He was still sitting up underneath that bush with that cantaloupe in his lap. Lightning hit him, just probably one clap of lightning out of that whole storm, and it didn't last 15 minutes, and it had got him.
And Mom was 17 at the time? So where did you get married, and tell us a little bit about your wedding day?
Well, them days you didn't have no receptions. The ladies had a trousseau tea, they called it, and they usually had them at the church or in their own house. And they had already had the trousseau tea, and all you do is just show the clothes and dishes and stuff, what you got. But so that was all over, and then we went to Logan to the temple and got married that day in the afternoon. And then it was right during pea harvest. And I asked Dad, I said, "I need a few days for a honeymoon." And he said, "You can have one day, you make sure you're back the next day." And so we went down to Covey's Little America, a motel in Salt Lake, and spent the night there, and was back ready to haul peas the next day on the farm. That was our honeymoon.
Okay. Your first child was Kent, and you want to tell us about him?
Yeah, we had, he was born in '49. Beautiful baby, just full term, just beautiful baby. And we went to the hospital and had him. She had him. And they kept him about 5 days then, the women or whatever. She stayed there and he got along good at the hospital, and we brought him home, and he just started to, not particularly right when we got him home, but a couple of days where he started to coughing, and he turned blue on us and couldn't get his air, and breathe, have a tough time breathing. So there was a doctor in Smithfield that had brought the baby. I said, you take him back down there and have him check him over and see what's going on. So they went to the doctor there in Smithfield, and he said, we should take x-rays, but he didn't have an x-ray machine, and see what we could find. But he said, I'll give you these prescriptions, or he gave him a shot or something. We went back home, and he got along good for, maybe another week. Then right back into this same problem. He just gasped for air and turned blue. So she'd call the doctor, and he'd say, we better go take him to the hospital and check him out down there. So we took him back to the hospital. We still hadn't got him named and didn't have a blessing or nothing. We had blessings, but we didn't have a name. And the doctor said, I think you better make arrangements and have him named. So they had him in an oxygen tent in the hospital. Me and 2 other brothers blessed him and gave him a name and got that done. And he came right out of it again, just colored up and was doing just great, and took him home again. One Sunday morning, Jolene had been up all night with him, called the doctor, and he said, Sister Fisher, there isn't anything I can do. The boy's going to die. And that's the first we had heard. There was a real problem. So Mother came down. We lived in the basement of their house. And Mother came down. She was holding him and passed away right in her arms. They put an enlarged heart on the death certificate, but they didn't even know what an enlarged heart was in them days. He lived a month. About 5 weeks, a month or 5.
Okay, and then your other children, how many did you have, and was there anything special about their births or the naming of them? Or?
Well, we had the first one, and then we had the problem with him, and then Sandra was the next one, and she came backwards. And we thought, oh dear, here we go again, more problems, you know. But we didn't have any problems with her as far as birth and whatever. And she was a beautiful baby. And we were living in Pocatello. We had moved to Pocatello then, and Jolene was pregnant with Kelly. And we was going home for a weekend. I had the weekend off, and we was going home and back down to Smithfield. So we went back down there, and Kelly was about 8 months. She was about 8 months with Kelly. While we were there that weekend, we went to bed that one night. She woke me up in the middle of the night. And she said, I'm having this baby. She said, we either got to make a mad dash for Pocatello, or else I better go to Logan and have him here. So I said, we aren't going to Pocatello. And so we went to the Logan Hospital, and about 15 hours later, and Kelly was born, and he was such a little squirt. He wasn't 4 pounds, I think, or something, 4.5 pounds. The doc came out with him in the curve of his arm, just to hold him in the curve of his arm there. And he said, he's a wiry little thing. He's going to be all right. But he was so tiny, and we came home with him, stayed down there for a week, and then I went back down the next weekend, got her, brought him home, and Kelly started downhill with this just about the same trouble that the other baby had had. But I thought, jeepers, we can't stand this. So she took him to the doctor, and the doctor sent him right to the hospital, and I thought, we're right back where we were. Got blessings on him. We didn't name him, but we got blessings. And anyway, they got him percolated and going again, and he was dehydrated. Oh, he looked tough, little teeny thing. And they got him going, and we finally got him out of the hospital and brought him home, and y'all know the answer. He just kept growing and growing and growing, and done fine up until 2 weeks ago. And the others was all just normal and super kids, and other than Larry, had to show off a lot and do things that was scary, and he had Gary Shepherd in a nervous wreck whenever we'd go anywhere or do anything. He'd pick up the axe and try to chop his toes off, and run here and run there, and never wore any clothes, never wore any shoes.
Yeah.
We was talking about that on this last steelhead trip, but normal kids after that, and a good bunch of kids.
As far as the names of the kids, was there any stories behind any of the names?
Well, I still don't know how Kellen got Kellen. But it was Kellen Blaine, and then you were Larry Ray for her dad's name, and that's about really the only thing. I don't know how Sandra came about. I don't know how Kathy came about. Tina and Tammy. Just names that she had decided on, and it sounded good to me.
What about special qualities or talents of your children? Any
Every one of
particular
them has
stick
special talents and qualities. But whatever they got and whatever they amounted to, she gets most of the credit for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Super kids.
Were there any things they did that was a real pet peeve to you that sticks out in your mind?
Well, there again, the job that I had, I worked 80 to 100 hours a week, and I was never home. It was just tough for her, and she just hung in there like an old trooper and never complained or said anything. And most everything turned out pretty good for six children anyway.
I don't know if there's anything specific about this, but what makes you happiest about each of your children, about your children?
Well, that they're good church-going people, and they got good families that are church-going families. And they're not out raising hell or doing anything that they shouldn't be doing. That means a whole bunch to us. They get along good in the community, and they get along good with their peers and their neighbors. That means a lot to us.
Can you think of any special experiences with your family, your children?
Well, everything was special. And when we were growing up, we went up to Justice Park every Monday night. Packers would go with us, and Shepherds would go with us, and Bud and his bunch would go with us, and we'd go up there and have an outing every Monday night, family home evening, or whatever you want to call it. And then Redfish Lake every year. That meant a lot to the kids, and it meant a lot to us. to go up there and be together. I remember Jolene said, well, they don't get soda pop any time, but when we go to Redfish Lake, that's one time the kids are gonna get a soda pop. And that didn't probably mean that much, but they all had soda pop to drink on the Redfish Lake trip, and they knew it, and they drank it. But whether it was good for them or not, I don't know.
So how many grandchildren do you have? You know?
I don't know. How many?
34 with the step kids and 26 or 30 with, no, it was 26, I think, with out.
So how do you feel about being a grandpa and a great grandpa?
Well, I love it. I don't feel bad at all about it.
Okay, here we are, December 21st, year 2000, approximately 1 year later after we started this history. So we'll continue now. Here's Blaine and Jolene.
I can't hear him. I
Yeah.
can't hear.
You can't hear.
Yeah, I can't hear.
Can't hear what?
Yeah, I can't hear.
See the red light.
Is the light on?
Yeah, I can't hear.
All right.
Okay, hand.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay, Blaine, a year ago when our tape stopped, we ran out of tape, we were talking about your childhood Christmases.
Oh my gosh.
So why don't you go ahead and start again and just describe your childhood Christmas.
Not going back that far. Well, it was during the Depression, so there wasn't a lot to worry about or a lot of presents or anything. But there was 9 of us, you all know, and everybody always got something. I don't know how the folks done it, but everybody always got something. And we always went to the canyon and cut down a Christmas tree and hauled it home and brought it home. I don't know how far back you go, but just as fast as the ones got out of high school, why they all took off. Afton and Dorothy took off and went and worked in the bullet down, I can't think of the name of it, but down in Salt Lake, they went to work down there making bullets for the war. But there was always something under the tree for everybody, and there was always a present or two for everybody. So it just worked out somehow. I don't know how they done it, but it worked out.
Okay. Okay. Did you have a TV in your home or a radio?
Always had a radio, but the TVs never came until about 1950 in our house, and I don't know if me and Jolene was married when they got that first TV, or if we had it a year before we got married, or what, but we always had a radio, and us boys had a radio down in our bedroom downstairs, so we listened to a lot of radio, but the TV didn't come along until about the time we was married or left the house down there and moved to Pocatello.
Okay. Did you have a favorite toy?
I got a .22 rifle. I was probably about 14, I don't know, 12 or 14. And they gave me a .22 rifle for Christmas. So that was probably my favorite toy, and I still have that .22. It's up to the cabin, but I still have that .22, and it was a little, just a single shot .22 rifle. That was probably the one that I remember the most.
How about any vacations growing up? Do you remember any of those, or what's your favorite one? Or?
The only vacations we took is the Tula reunion over to the Bear Lake, and we always went to that. I don't remember missing that in a lot of years. Some of us didn't go every time, the kids, but that was about the only vacation, a 3-day weekend vacation over to Bear Lake with the Tula reunion.
What about camping? Did you ever go camping besides the Tula reunion?
Not really. We didn't do much camping. Me and DeVar and Wes Tarbett, when we were juniors in high school, took off camping. We went to Yellowstone Park and stayed. I guess we was gone about a week that trip, and we wound up over to Bear Lake and made it. I think it was about a week of it, and we was juniors in high school that year. But as far as camping overnight and stuff like that, a couple of scout camps and things like that were about the only thing that we got to do or had time to do. So there wasn't a lot of overnighters or a lot of camping.
Do you remember any special birthdays or anything like that?
Oh, they were all special, but there was so many of us, and we always had a cake, and we always played games and done things on the birthdays, but there was so many of us, it was kind of hard to keep track of a special one or any special ones.
What kind of games did you play?
There was board games, Monopoly, and aggravation, and I don't know. Sorry, I remember they played Sorry all the time, but we played a lot of cards on rainy days and stuff when we couldn't go farm. Why, we played a lot of cards, and Cherry was the card nut, and that's what we done when we had some time off or some spare time.
Did you ever have anything scary happen to you?
Well, it wasn't to me, but it was scary. I snuck out in the backyard or back shed back behind the house, and Dad had some black leaf 40 there that he used to spray with and to disinfect the chicken coops. And I drank some of it. I guess I turned them on in the house there for a little while, and they run across the street. The doctor lived right across the street from us, and he wasn't home, but his wife came over and got some sour milk and poured into me and tried to get me to throw up, but I guess that was pretty scary. And then we was unloading some loose hay off of the wagon one day. I was down underneath, and I think DeVar was up on the load, throwing it off and down to me, and the pitchfork slipped out of his hand. Come down and caught me right on top of the head. One of the tines caught me right on top of the head and come out right above my ear. And I went around owning that pitchfork for about an hour, I guess. Nobody dared pull it out of me with my head. But finally got Dad, found him and got him over there, and he pulled the pitchfork out of my head. And I don't even think we went to the doctor with it. It just kind of pierced the skin, but it was stuck in there pretty good. And then Dad backed over me with the wagon one day when we stuck with a load of manure, and the team couldn't pull it, and so he's trying to back him up, and I was out back behind trying to push, and fell down. He run over me with a load of manure, and never bothered me any. Just got up all shitty and messy. They just washed me off, and away we went. But just a few things like that, probably the scariest.
Okay. Did your parents go to church?
Mom went to church all the time. Dad went when the kids had something going on, or they was in some parks or doing some things. From about the time that we all started to go, and I don't remember Dad going very many Sundays, but just to when things was happening or going on. But Mom went most of the time. All the kids went.
How did you do your household chores? How did they do that in your home?
Well, the house itself, there was the 6 girls, so it seemed like the chores in the house really wasn't a bother for the boys because we was out doing milking cows and doing chores outside all the time. So inside the house, maybe take out the garbage or something was probably about the only thing. I never scrubbed any floors. I never done any dusting or anything like that. No. So, but the 6 girls kept it, and Mom kept it clean.
Okay, you mentioned a couple of your accidents. Were you ever seriously ill?
Oh, I got yellow jaundice one time when, I don't know how old I was, 15 or 16 or so. Just wore out, run down, and I was down for about a month that time. I couldn't get over that, and it just about wiped me out.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about you now. What are the things that make you happy?
Seeing my kids happy.
Okay, what is your greatest sorrow?
Oh, I don't have any sorrows. Right now, my greatest sorrow is worrying about Jolene, so.
Okay. What do you think is your best quality and why?
Oh, I don't know. Easy going, I guess, and just like to be busy and keep doing something all the time. Don't just lay around and worry too much, I suppose.
Okay. Did you ever do anything in scouting?
Yeah, I made it to first class, or did I get a star? I think I got a star, but when the scouts went anywhere, when they done anything, we had I think it was Monday nights that we had a scout doings all the time. But they started at 5 o'clock or 5:30 or 6 in the evening, and I couldn't get my chores done, my milking done in time to get over there, so I didn't get a lot of scouting done. But we did go on. I went on some scouting trips and overnighters, and spent a week over to Bear Lake at Camp Hunt every year with scouts for 5 or 6, 7 years, I suppose. And that Camp Hunt is still over there on the shores of Bear Lake. They still operate it today.
Do you have a favorite hymn or song?
Oh, I love them all. I just love music and songs. So I don't know about a favorite.
Okay. Were you ever in a public performance?
We put on Mutual plays the Mutual all the time, and then when I was when I was growing up, maybe before, I doubt a teenager, probably before teenager. Dr. Reese was the bishop of the ward for when I first started, but later on he became the stake president. And I sang that Mormon boy song so many different wards and chapels in Smithfield and all in Richmond and all around Smithfield there. He'd take me when he had to go speak as a stake president. He'd take me and I'd sing that Mormon boy song every Sunday for years. I'd done that 4 or 5 years. I'd done that.
Okay. Do you remember what the worst thing that ever happened to you?
No, there wasn't any worse things.
Heart surgery?
Well, that was probably the best thing that happened to me because it saved my life. But that was quite an ordeal, that open heart surgery. But we got over that and done all right. It's been 6 years, I think.
What was the most adventurous thing that you've ever done?
Oh, jeez. I don't know, what would it be?
Any trips or?
I guess that Alaska trip, if you're talking of adventure and doing something that me and Jolene took, was gone almost 2 months on that, and then just seen some things that probably a lot of people haven't seen, and done some things on that trip that are pretty special and that we remember, but we've been on, you know, we've done a lot of things, but that might be the most adventurous.
What's the most exciting place you've ever been to?
Well, I think the Alaska trip was, for me, a lot of people wouldn't even liked it, but we both enjoyed it, and the ferry trip back down the inside passage, and being with Judy and Jeff and the kids up there, it was just a choice experience.
Is there anything you ever did in your life that you wish you could undo?
No, I don't think so. No, not really.
Okay. Are there any family heirlooms in your possession?
No. Dad had a shotgun, and Leon said that was supposed to be his, and so when Dad died, Leon got it, and then when Leon died, I made Fran give it back to Farron. So that, as far as heirlooms, that's probably the only one.
Okay. What's the most wonderful thing that ever happened to you?
Getting married to this, my bride.
When you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, I like to tinker with cars and mess around with cars and motors, and I took a couple of classes down to Utah State University at night. Mother wanted to go back to university, so me and her, even after we was married for a couple of years, me and Mom went back down to Logan to university and went to night school. Mom took some classes and I took some auto mechanics. And I didn't think it would wind up being a service station, but there was probably a lot of things that I picked up then that worked in a service station, and so I like to meet the public and do things that I can do with the public. So it didn't matter whether I was a service station or if I was a farmer or what it was. Well, I just enjoy what you're doing and go after it.
Did you ever meet any famous people?
I met Bing Crosby one day. He was over in Minidoka, chicken hunting, pheasant hunting, and there was probably 4 or 5 of us. I think Leon was there, and me and Shep. We was going through this beet field, and some people stopped. We got about halfway through it, and some people stopped and kind of joined in with us to walk through this beet field so we could cover it all. And we got the other end, and we kind of got in us together at the other end, and we was just standing there talking. And this one guy says, "Do you guys know who this is?" And we said, "No, we don't know who this is." He had on an old hat and a hunting vest, and he said, "This is Bing Crosby." And it was Bing Crosby, and we walked through that beet field with him.
Wow. Anybody else? Carl Malone.
Eddie Arnold. I've been to several of Eddie Arnold's concerts in the past 10 years down to Laughlin, Nevada, and everything that he done up to that. And then Carl Malone, we got our picture taken with him, me and Jordan and Jeff and Jolene, and not many more, I don't suppose.
Okay. I know growing up you had several nicknames. What were some of them, and how did you get those?
Everybody in Smithfield had a nickname. There wasn't too many of us, so everybody got a nickname. But Uncle Firm, Dad's brother, always gave everybody a nickname, and mine was John, and Leon's was Pete, and Farron's was Fudd. And when we moved to Pocatello, we came up here and we built the station and was all working there, and all them people down there in Smithfield knew knew where we were up here, and they'd stop in, "Where's Blaine? We don't know any Blaines." Or they'd say, "Where's John?" is what I'm trying to say. "Well, we don't know any Johns." "Well, where's the Fisher boys?" "Well, they're around here somewhere." And but they said, "Well, we want John or Pete, Fudd. Where are they?" "Well, we don't know them." Anyway, turned out Gordon Packard, when he worked nights for us down there, he run into a lot of these Smithfieldites when they'd come through. So he's the only one that calls me John anymore up here, but he says they told him that my name wasn't Blaine, my name was John, and Leon's was Pete, and Fudd's was Fudd, not Farron. So that's about the only ones.
Okay. Where's your favorite places to go?
Well, the past 22 years been Henry's Lake, so I guess that's still the favorite place to go, but just gets harder to do and harder to do. Anyway, we've been going up there for 22 years. If we had $1 for every trip we made up there, we'd be millionaires, or for every gallon of gas we bought. So that's probably the best. I love the Salmon River. We spent a lot of time on the Salmon River and went camping up there to Redfish Lake and around. And that was choice at that time too.
Okay. What are your favorite hobbies?
Eating, I guess. I don't got any favorite hobbies other than fishing.
Okay. Do you have any favorite Bible or religious stories?
Oh, after 71 years, you've heard a few and you remember a few. I think the one that sticks in my mind is that year that Kathy took all the kids out there in the old barn, and some of them was shepherds, and some of them was Mary, and some of them was Joseph, and some of them was Jesus, and they got pictures of it all, and that sticks in my mind pretty good.
Do you have a favorite church authority?
No, we grew up in the olden days, and the prophets themselves, or authorities, was probably just as much a prophet as any of them now, but they didn't expound and go to stakes and talk, and you couldn't see them on TV, so really didn't know them as well as you do the ones now, or get to know them as well and listen to them talk and what have you. So, but they all had their day and they all done their job, and I don't know, that's about it.
Do you remember who the prophet was when you were baptized?
That's a funny story. We all went to, Dr. Reese was the bishop of the ward, and 4 of us went, me and Cookie Carbot and DeVar and Wes. I think there was 4 or 5 of us, and we was going out of primary into Boy Scouts and to teachers' quorums. And we all went in to be interviewed by the bishop, and we went down to his office down in Smithfield there, in his doctor's office, and he took us all in at the same time. He didn't take us individually. And he asked us a bunch of questions about if we knew our 12 articles of faith. And he said, "Does any of you know what church do you belong to?" And there wasn't one of us knew what church we belonged to. We'd been going to church all our life, and we just automatically Mormons, and we Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but we didn't know it.
Do Do you have any deeply embedded values?
Oh, gee, I don't know. Just moral values, I guess. So much corruption going on and everything. Of course, we didn't have that problem. We didn't have drug problems or nothing like that when we was growing up. We didn't have time, and they wasn't available anyway, so didn't have any problems that way.
Do you have do you have any phobias?
No, just I guess anybody that's lazy and don't do their job is a phobia to me. I guess I don't know.
We mentioned a little bit about your heart surgery. How did you feel about life and things when you had your heart surgery? And did you think you were going to make it through it? And what did you learn from that? Appreciate.
You just got to appreciate the doctors and what they can do now, because 30 years ago, or maybe not 30, maybe a little longer than that, they wouldn't have saved me on a deal that I had. But the things they could do nowadays is just they won't let you die. They just repair you and fix you up and tell you to get back in the saddle and get going. But every time after I got back home, every time I'd lay on that couch in the front room out there, the sun would shine through there, and it'd start to get me a sneeze coming. I thought I'd blowed the whole thing all to pieces 2 or 3 different times when I had to sneeze, but it just makes you, well, what have they done? They've boosted man's life up 10 years from 10 years ago. So it's amazing what they can do. So.
Did you think you were going to make it through it?
Well, I didn't worry about it when they told me that I had no choice. We got to do it, and we got to do it now. And so I didn't have any problem with it when the night before I watched the Jazz play a ball game and went in the next morning, and I didn't know how the diabetes situation along with it was going to work, but everything worked out fine. And haven't had no trouble with it ever since.
How do you feel about politics?
I don't get into politics. It's whatever happens, but the only thing I don't like about politics is all the money that's spent getting into offices and stuff. It just burns my tail.
Of which principle of the gospel do you have the strongest testimony?
Oh, gee, I don't know. Never did smoke, and never did do much carousing around. All we ever done was just get married and work and try to make a living. And I do know of several that smoked that had problems and died early, and probably will die early, but never had no trouble with any of that.
When do you feel you became converted to the gospel?
Oh, I was converted to the gospel when I was a teenager, and I knew which direction and what I should be doing and what I shouldn't be doing, but probably when the kids started coming, and primary and mutual and all that stuff. And you could see that you needed to help raise the children. Why, that's probably when it all sunk in a little bit.
Could you think of the most trying experience that ever happened to you?
Trying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the most trying experience has been this stroke of mother. We're working through that, so. But that's been pretty trying.
What brings you the most peace?
knowing that all you kids are in the active in the church and doing the things that you know are right to do, and raising your kids up the same way.
Did you ever set any goals?
Oh, I don't set goals. I just do what I think and say what I think, and always look ahead and keep pushing in a positive way. But as far as gonna do this and gonna do that or whatever, well, I probably haven't set too many goals.
Do you have a favorite holiday?
No, I don't think so. The holiday's a holiday, and I just enjoy them all.
If you could go back, would you choose a different occupation, or do you think you'd follow the same path?
Well, I don't say that it was maybe the most rewarding occupation that I did, but the problem was I had two other brothers and with me clear through the whole thing, and they weren't happy with it, but they stayed, and we done the best that we could do. But there was so many other things that would have probably made more money, but money don't mean that much to me. It's just being there and doing what you're doing and do it good, do it right, and being just one of the boys.
So what advice do you have for your children and grandchildren
Oh, geez.
for an occupation
Yeah,
or
for an
work,
occupation, I don't know.
as far as work ethics?
There's so many things nowadays that are good, and there's some things that aren't so good. But I think just whatever you decide to do it, and do it the best you know how, and it'll seem like things always work out.
Could you think of any special spiritual experiences that you've had?
Yeah, there was a couple. I went elk hunting that one year, and I was a diabetic. And Larry and Kurt Smith was there, and we got up on the mountain. I remembered I didn't take my insulin shot when we left camp that morning, and so I told Larry and Kurt, I don't know if there's anybody else or not, to just stay put and just wander around there on that hill, and I'd be back, and I'd go to camp and get my shot and come wandering back up that way. Well, I got back up that way, and no Larry and no Kurt. So after a couple hours, I hadn't found them, and didn't know it was going to start getting dark, and I thought, well, I'm quite a ways away from camp. I got to start getting back to camp myself. But didn't want to leave you two up there on the hill stranded and scared. So I said a little prayer and got up off my knees and started wandering back to camp. I don't know if I beat you guys back to camp or if you beat me back to camp, but I'd heard that there was a couple of prayers said on Kurt and Larry's side too, and all of us showed back up to camp at dark, and it worked out okay. And one other one in the Selway, Pickens' boy had killed an elk over in Short Creek, and that was quite a ways away from our base camp, and we went over there to get it. Three or four of us went over to get it, and we got stranded down in the canyon and couldn't get out. We got the elk, but we couldn't get out before dark, and there was too many trees and didn't know where we was going, so we had to spend the night in there. Didn't have no groceries, didn't have no water, and we got we had to stay all night. Took the saddles off the horses and bedded down for the night. Well, anyway, the next day I needed some insulin and I needed something to eat, and we didn't have anything. And we'd rode the horses down Short Creek to another canyon. And when we got down to the canyon on Clear Creek, on the Clearwater, we still didn't have anything to eat, and we was still 5 miles away from our camp. And I told the guys to go ahead and take off down that trail, and I'd catch up with them in a minute. So I stepped off the trail, and after they had left, I knelt down and I asked a little prayer. Told the good Lord that I was needing something to eat and I was hurting and I didn't know if I could make it back to camp. And I stepped back up on this trail that's been blocked and condemned for 20 years. And there, sitting on that trail, laying in the trail, was a half-pound Mr. Goodbar. And it wasn't, the wrapper wasn't faded or I don't know how long it'd been set, just like it was brand new laying right there in that trail. And I caught up with the rest of the crew and I gave them all a piece, and we all had some Mr. Goodbar, and we made it back to camp in good shape. But I was shaking and having a rough time trying to keep going, and there that candy bar lay.
What church callings have you had?
Oh, it started out, I guess, with teachers' quorum president, and we went through all them, priest. I don't think I was a priest president, but when we moved to Pocatello, I didn't go to church for quite a few years, and had to work Sundays and used it for an excuse. When we finally moved over here on Meadowbrook, why, President Richens was still state president, and Sam Hawker lived down the street a piece. He said, or Sam, they put him in elders' quorum president, so Sam asked Bishop and the stake president if he could call me for a counselor. And I hadn't been going to church and nobody knew what was going on. So they called me in and said he wanted me for a counselor, and it was me and Lloyd Waldron was these two counselors. So we accepted that, and for the next, I think it was 14 or 15 years, I was in a elders quorum presidency and president for 6 years. And when we finished that up, then Richens was called back to the bishop of the 8th Ward, and he asked for me for a counselor, and so I done 2 years or 3 years with Bishop Richens as his counselor, and then that's about it.
Okay. You think you could tell us a little bit about Leon's death and after Velma and your feelings around that?
Well, they're tough. Velma was first, and she just had a tough time. She was a sick person for a long time, well, a year, maybe 2 years. And it finally got her, and then we thought, well, things would go along for a while then, and wouldn't have any more problems. And then Leon come home with lung cancer, and we found out about it about Thanksgiving, or he did, found out about it about Thanksgiving, and by January he was gone. And then right after that, Afton had breast cancer and had one removed, and then a little later on had another one removed. And she just tough old bird, but it took her down, and every one of them was cancer, and so it makes you wonder whether anything you've eaten or anything you've done in the past or whatever you're going to die from, is it going to be cancer? Is it going to be something else? And I'd sooner get run over with a reindeer than I would to have a slow death cancer, but I guess no one ever knows for sure what they're going to do or have.
Yeah. Well, let's say that everybody was gathered together for your funeral. What would you want to say to them?
Well, should say to them before the funeral, but just that how proud we are and what a good job all of you's done, and how lucky we are to have y'all is grateful and helpful, and to have y'all with us and around us. It's just been a good ride.
Okay, just have a few questions. What are the great changes that you've seen in your lifetime that have really made an impact on you?
Oh, I don't know. Transportation, I guess. I'm not one to be around a lot of people, and this airplane situation and these airports and this hurrying here and hurrying there, and all these people going in every direction. It just staggers my brain, and definitely a lot of stuff in the farming industry has been improved, and you got to be a big operator now to get all this stuff in and keep it going and get it going. Probably transportation. I don't know.
Is that what has amazed you the most with technology?
Yeah, and then so many people using it. I can't believe there's, and everybody's got to go a million miles every year. They just can't go to their neighbors or go see their own families, and of course they're scattered all over the globe too. So I guess but that's probably the main thing. I don't know.
Have you learned any principles that you'd like to share with us, or?
No, I've learned all my principles from you kids. So.
What is the biggest lesson in life you found to be true?
Well, you can't raise a big family alone, and if you haven't got the church, I don't know how these people are doing it, and the gospel, and what it means, and how it means, and who's gonna report and do all this this guessing and deciding who's gonna do what and where they're gonna go and what they're gonna do, and it's just blows my mind that the ones without the gospel, how they feel and how they want to do and what they think, and I just can't understand, if they're God's children, how they're all gonna get these things worked out, and how it's all gonna work out for everybody.
Do you have any dreams, expectations, or hopes for your children and grandchildren?
I don't worry about them because they've all been good kids, and you kids, you guys has all been good people and doing the things that are right. And my dream is just that you done that, and you have, and taught your children principles and things, and now here comes the great grandkids, and if they'll just do the same with them, why it's been a good posterity and a good ride.
So how do you feel about death?
Oh, I've had a beautiful life. I don't worry about death. I just don't want a slow, agonizing death. If a guy had a chance or a choice, but that don't work sometimes. But I've had a good life. Been there and done that.
So what's your personal secret for happiness?
Well, just don't take things too serious, I guess. Just live life a day at a time, and make the most of it, like that sign on that deal says in there. Live one day at a time and make it a masterpiece. Just when you got a good family and people around you and friends, why, it all works out.
So in closing, is there anything else you'd like to add that we didn't cover, or any other experiences or anything that you'd like to have recorded for your posterity?
All the posterity so far know me. It's just the great grandkids that we just hope that will continue, and it's just been fun to be around them all and around you all and be a part of it. And we hope that there'll be a few more years yet. But if there isn't, why, like I said, I've lived a good life, done the things that wanted to do, and watched the kids grow, watched ball games, took them fishing, took them hunting. Well, not much hunting, fishing, and enjoyed it all. Now you got something to say, Mother?
Yeah, good. Yeah.
And just keep doing those things that are right, and being not afraid to enjoy life. Do things, and learn your kids and teach your kids to do the same.
Okay. Well, in closing, would you mind bearing your testimony to us?
I done that the other day in church, and I'm such a big boob that I don't know. It's just that I do believe in God, and I do believe the church is a true church of Christ, and the things that they tell us and the gospel that they preach is definitely the truth. And if we'll just listen and do what they tell us to do, and try to do our best, and do what's asked of us, why, things will all work out pretty good.
Well, I think I can speak for all the family, Dad. We love you and glad you're around and appreciate you, all you've done.